Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll masach the Zevachim daf Chav Ches. We're going to begin on Chav Zayin Beis by the Mishnah. The Mishnah says as follows: Hashaychet is a zevach. So this is a very important Mishnah which discusses the dinim of pigul, in which we make a major distinction between chutz lezmanoi. You had an improper machshava outside of the proper time, versus chutzim kaimo, outside the proper place. So that's what this Mishnah is going to make, this distinction between the two. Let's say during the time of the shechita, hashech is a zavach, so you have the machshava lizrag damai bachutz, that you're going to sprinkle the blood outside, mixas damai bachutz, or even some of it outside. In other words, this is all chutzim kaimo, not in the right place. Or lahakter imorav b'chutz o mixas imor b'chutz, that you are going to be makter the ketairis outside of the proper place, or even some of it. Lechel bas b'chutz o kazais b'sar b'chutz, that during the shechita you're thinking, I'm going to end up eating this in the wrong place. Or echel kazais ma'or ha'aliyah b'chutz. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about this line that's thrown in here, that a person has the machshava about eating the kazayas of the hide of the tail outside, which is a little bit difficult because we're going to see why we're talking about the tail. So pasal be'in bo kares. So the din of kares by pigul does not apply when it comes to that wrong place. No place, no kares. Okay? Lizrag damo machar. However, if it's the wrong time, like you're going to do this rika on the tomorrow, mixes damo machar, some of it, lahakter imor machar, mixes imor machar, I'm going to be makter at the wrong time. La'achel b'sar machar, kazais b'sar machar, I'm going to eat it at the wrong time. O la'achel kazais ma'or ha'aliyah l'machar, or I'm going to eat the hide of the tail at the wrong time. Pigul v'chayv lo of kares. So time, kares, we know you lose time. So kares is time related. So it's interesting. Of course, this is not the reason. This is just a simon for me to remember this. Chutz lezmanoi, zman is time. So therefore you get kares, which you lose time, right? You lose years. However, when it comes to place, no kares. No place, no kares. You put in the wrong place, no kares. Okay. So, savruam or aliyah, so we're going to again focus on this tail. So, when it comes to the skin that covers the tail, as we continue to chav chesam and aleph, so we are going to say it's ka'aliyah dami. It has the same status as the tail itself. And says Rashi, v'afil inyan haktara, also how it's sacrificed. And as Rashi says, Vishalmi keves shaliyaso kariva nami haor karav. So when it comes to the bringing of the kevesh, the lamb, right? So you're supposed to bring the tail, that's on the mizbech, but also therefore the skin too. Now if that's true, mechashiv mechilas mizbech adam. The machshava, you're supposed to be burning this on the mizbech. Instead, you have an improper machshava, the wrong time or place, about not the same thing, but a totally different thing, that you want to eat it instead of putting on the mizbech, also at the wrong time or place. Maybe the only time there's a din pigul is if I am supposed to eat it, but at this place or at this time. Here, you're not even supposed to be eating it. So that's the problem. So says Rashi, v'katani masnisan, d'chi shachet shlomim l'achol or ha'ali b'chutz l'machar havi machshava. We're saying that actually works. V'yaval gam d'chayshim echilas mizbech la'adam. So Amr Shmuel, Chamani Rabbi Lezer, he Amr machashmin mechilas mizbech achilas adam. In order to be chayiv, for pigul, it has to be, all the cases in our Mishnah, it's an achila. Either it's talking about me, the Kohen, eating it, or the Mizbech consuming it, right? So or like the Zrika, right? Something which is consumption or put onto the Mizbech. Only that is shaykh for pigel. But of course, during you have this pigel machshava b'shas shchita. It doesn't even matter if you end up doing it at the wrong time or place. It's just the machshava itself will make it that you can no longer eat it. But the din kares is by eating it. If you then eat it, then you're chayiv kares. Okay. So the din is that it's fine. That according to Lezer, mechashim me'achilos mizbech le'achilos adam, me'achilos adam achilos mizbech. Not hashaychen es a zevach. A person shechs a carbon, so le'echol davar she'ein darchel echol, but he shechs it for something which is not fit to be eaten, right? So again, it's supposed to be, let's say, put on the mizbech, but he shechs it lahakter davar she'ein darchel hakter kosher. According to him, it's considered to be kosher. Rabbi Lezer paisel. Rabbi Lezer says that it is pasul. What does that mean? So it says Rashi, kegoin imorim. Let's say the sacrificial parts, so these are considered to be she'in darkel echol. It's not supposed to be eaten. Either it's something that's supposed to be burned on this back completely, or it's something in which is not allowed to be done in the wrong time or place. So, by my kimp to Rabbi Lezer. So, what are we saying that this is like Rabbi Lezer? So, Ema Seifa, Zeklal, Kol Shaychid, Vamakabel, Vahamoylich, Vahazarik. Anyone who does any of the four avodas, Le'echel Davar Shedarkel Echol, and you're doing it with something that you're supposed to eat, L'Hakter Davar Shedarkel Hakter, or you're supposed to be makter these things, Davar Shedarkel Echol, if it's something which is the way to eat, in Shein Darkel Echol Loi. So who is that? It says that if it's She'ein darkel echolo, right? So clearly that's a ton of rabbanon. So Reish Rabbi Lezer v'sefer rabbanon. So Ermele in, yeah, no problem, it's fine. So so that's fine. So but we're going to say that our Mishnah therefore is like the shita of Rabbi Lezer, that it's okay, that even though your machshava is for eating it, when it's really supposed to be burnt on the mizbech, it's still that improper machshava chutz l'zman chutz l'kaim will passel it. We'll still call it pigel. Rab Huna Omer or Aliyah Lav Kaliyadami. No. The reality is that it's not the same thing. Says Rashi, Inyan mitzvahs haktarasai, regarding the haktaira. So your makter, the tail, but not the ore of the tail, and therefore the ore of the tail is something which technically you could eat, and therefore that's the reason why the kasha never started. So I'm Rabbi, my time at Rav Huna. Why does he say this? Because the pasuk says chelbo ha'alya or ha'alya. It says clearly that it's fats. So why is it coming to tell us beferish? It's telling you dafka the chaylev, but not the ore. Not that's burnt, but not the hide. So again, we're back to our question. So this is really a third possible answer. But it's not a tail that is going to be put on the mizbech anyway. So just like the tail, so too the skin is not something that's put on the mizbech anyway. So it says Rashi shein kriva, as we saw previously, limud al eiz she'ina tu'un alya, that when it comes to the goat, we don't burn the tail; it's only by the keves. Now, kul k'shmuel amri, not everyone can say the first answer like Shmuel, who says that our Mishnah is like Rabbi Eliezer, that the achilas mizbech is like achilas adam. So not everyone holds like him, because Reish Rabbi Eliezer sever rabbanan lo mukmi. We didn't want to establish it like that, because he'd rather have it the consistent. Karav Huna lo amri. Not everyone is going to say like the shita of Rav Huna. So again, that was the first answer. Rav Huna, who says that really it's not the same thing. It's a lav ka'al yadami, so therefore they're not the same, and therefore it's something which is supposed to be eaten. So why can't everyone just say that? That sounds much more clear, pretty straightforward. Because or aliyah ka'al yadami, kamash mulhu. So it's actually people feel that it should be the same thing. However, Rav Chisda, my Tamil Amri, what's the problem with Rav Chisda? We have a nice diak in the pasuk. So my kamashman or aliyah ka'aliyah. Dami, what his whole come to tell you that it has the same status? Tanino, we already learned that. It says, Ve'elu Sehim Kibsaran, these in which they're Sehin Kibsaran, that the hides of the animal have the same status as the flesh. And it says, or Shetachas Alya. We already know this din. It says it explicitly that the hide underneath the tail, it has the same status as the tail. So the fact that he's saying, this whole thing is coming to tell us that chiddush, it's not even a chiddush. For Rav Chisda, he says, no. Even though it does say it there, here it's needed to be repeated. Because maybe over there it's only talking about Gabi, the dinim of Toma. That we say, says Rashi, L'tamid Tumas Nevelus, V'kachashiv or Ha'alya. However, Derachach, why? Derachach mitzaref, that since it's darchich, since it's soft, so therefore it will be mitzaref. Avahacha emol mashchal gedula kederach shamalachim oichlin v'lavidi malachim deachli hachi emolo kamash malan. So maybe the whole inyan is it's something which has to do with greatness, and it's something which a king would eat. But then when it comes to the hide of a tail, that's not something which king would eat. So therefore, maybe it doesn't belong in the mizbeach. So the chiddush is that not only inyan toma, but also the inyan putting on the mizbeach is the same thing. It should be burnt. Okay. Meisvei hashaychen is oila. So it says the person who shechs the carbon oila. Now an oila is other one that's hides. Everything is being mocked there on the mizbeach. Lahakter kazayis maor shetachas shel ha'aleha. And you have the machshava that you're going to be mocked there, a kazayis of its flesh, which is under the tail, chutzim kaimoi, outside of its proper place. So we say it's possible in bakaris. Chutzim manoi, time is pigol v'chayim bakaris. So Eliezer ben Yehuda, ish velim, oimer, ish avli. I'm not sure what that acronym is of his name. Avli Oimer Mishom Rabbi Yaakov. He said in the name of Rabbi Yaakov, V'chein Hayu Rabbi Shimon Yehuda Ish Kvar Ikum Oimer Mishom Rabbi Shimon Echad or base Parsus Behema Daka. What's that? Echad or when it comes to the hide of the base Parsus, which is from the knee downward, behema daka of a small animal, echad or harai shel egel harach, or the hide of the head of a calf that is soft, echad or shetachas ali. And here's the key line: the hide under the tail, the koil shemanoi chachamim v'chol shemanoi. So chachamim gabi toma the koil. Choshman Chachamim Gabi Toma Gabi Toma the Elisher same Kibsaran Ulhavi or shall base Habaishis. So he says that's coming to include the hide by the female genitalia area. Chutzim Kaimoi Pasal in Mokaris. Chutzim Mano Pigol V'chaim Lav Karis. Oyla in Avol Zevach Lo. Now, why are we talking about over here an oila? It must be coming to tell you it's davka when it comes to an oila, but not any other carbon. The Bishlam Rav Huna, I can understand according to the sheet of Rav Huna that said before that the or of the ali is lav ka'ali dami. So according to him, hainu tiny oila. That's why it mentions the case of oila. Says Rashi, the oimer behedya mati kra gabi aliyah Dinahavi imordin, that the tail is burned. Abul gabi oila lo amay teksiv hinachtam beor ha'aliyah basarhu. However, fine. El Rav Chisda may iri the tani oila. Listen, zavach. What's the difference according to him? According to the sheet of Rav Chisda said. So he said we had Shmuel, Rav Huna, and that was Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Apparently, it shouldn't make a difference of an oil or not. Says Rashi, the Omer Gabi Elias Emorin or Nami Karav that the hide is also be makriv. This is zavach stama, right? So according to the shita of Rav Chisda, apparently we shouldn't make any distinctions because it says Rav Chisda itzrach. That's what we've been talking about. So Armach Rav Chisda iboy seima ba'aliyah shel gedi iboy seima tani zavach. Either we can talk about the gedi, which is we're not makriv the tail, or we're going to be talking about a zevach stam. Okay, and therefore it's not necessarily an oila, but it could be any carbon. All right, let's flesh this out better. Question 12. Or ha'alya, the skin of the tail, shel oilas kevesh, of a carbon oila, o shel shalmi kevesh, or shlamim, shel oilas aiz, when it comes to a goat, o shalmi aiz, him karibin al gamim mizbeach. So when it comes to these tails, are the makriv on the mizbeach. So let's go simple. When it comes to an aiz, the or ha'aliyah is ka'aliyah lahakrava. When it comes to the oila, it's burnt, right? We make no distinction when it comes to an aiz. It's all burnt up. When it comes to a shalmei aiz, nothing is burnt. Okay, so by an oila, by an when we're dealing with a goat, of an oila, the whole thing is burnt because basically we burn up everything. However, when it comes to the shlamim, so there we say that none of it is burnt, not the tail or anything. So when it comes to a goat, we don't make any distinction. However, when it comes to an oilas kevesh, in which again the oila basically everything is we're makriv basically everything. So typically, but we're dealing with a keves, a lamb. So or ha'aliyah ka'aliyah lahakrava. So then again, because it's an oil and a keves, we burn everything, the tail and the or, everything. However, shalmi keves, the question is when it comes to a shlamim. There we have a machlokis whether or not we are makriv the hides. So again, certainly when we're dealing with an oila, it doesn't make any difference. Everything is burnt. Everything is burned. It doesn't make any difference. If it's a keves or an aiz, the tail, its skin, it's burnt. The hide of the tail burnt. When it comes to a shlamim, if it's an aiz, none of it's burnt. If it's a keves, so then we have a machlokus. So that is the basic answer behind this. So again, when we're so this whole question where it says a sheichet that's a oila, right? So why is it mentioned in the case of an oila? So it could be talking about not just an oila, it could be talking about any carbon according to the shita of Rav Chisda. The din wouldn't be any different, right? According to him, just like when it comes to a regular, like in other words, not an oil but a shlamim, it should have the exact same din. So why does he mention an oila? So the fact that you only mention oila, it almost sounds like it's making a difference between an oila and a shlamim. That by an oila it's all burnt up, but maybe a shlamim it's not. So that's the way the whole question came to be. Okay, question TA8. It's to be able to hold cup and to remember this for 30 and no 30 blot is unbelievable. Question TA8. Hashaychi keves al manas lahakter or ha'alya lamacher im havi pigel. Okay, let me get this. You shecht a keves in order to be makter the or of the alya. So again, our Mishnah says clearly it says or ha'alya, right? But the question is, does that how is that shaykh? So our Mishnah sounds like it is pigel, so it's not so clear. If it's oila, then it's definitely pigel because you had the wrong machshava about that which is supposed to be completely burned. However, when it comes to a shlamim or a zevach, there we have a machlokus whether or not the hide of the tail is like the tail, and therefore the question is: do we actually burn the or comparable to the tail, or we don't? So therefore, that's where it becomes machlokas. And this is the same question as TB8. So we'll mark this down. Hashaychet keves al manas lahakter or ha'aliyah lamachar im ha'yipigel. So im ze bekarbon oila sheish hakravas aleha, or I should even write the or oz havipigel. Avo im ze carbon shlomim or zavach oz yesh hevdel im hakeves oaz hoel haaz ein makrivinon ein moalwin. Because when it comes to an az by a shlomim, mash inkin bekeves. Okay, so my head just spun really quick. So let's make sure we got all that one more time. So this is again comparable to question TA8. This is TB8. So let's see what I wrote again. So ba'oila, it is pigel, right? Ro'im ze b'carbon oila sheish hakrovas aliyah oz havi pigel. Bezevach havi plugta, right? So it's really by a zevach, it's a machlokas, but the question 8 is only by a keves. So by a keves, yesh machlokas, right? So by a keves, it's machlokas. The question is by an az, what the din is when it comes to an az. So when it comes to a goat, we said that everyone will hold by shalmi az afil aliyah eno kariva. So what I wrote, im ze carbon shlomim oz yesh hevdel im keves o az hoyel ha'az ein makriven ein moalwin. In Moalwin? No, it says in Moalwin. In Zepigel, it should say. Okay. Umashin Kemasish Machlokas. Okay. Not so simple to hold cup, but again, just probably the easier way to remember it again is when we're dealing with a carbon oil, doesn't make any difference. You're makriv the whole thing, whether it's a goat or a sheep, we're makriv everything. We don't make any distinctions. The whole question is when we're dealing with a zevach. So by an az, none of it's being we don't makriv the tail or nothing. However, when it comes to a keves, where sometimes the tail is makriv, so there it's a machlokas when it comes to where the tail is makriv the tail. The question is, do we say that we're also makriv the hide? So the az basically push it. By shlomim, you're not makriv the tail. Again, when it comes to an oil, we do because it's an oil; it's completely burnt up. Okay. All right, let's move on. So pasul v'inbo kares. So when it comes to no place, no kares. So mina hanimili somer shmuel trei kroi ksivim. There's two psukim. Mahi somer rabba shlishi. The pasuk says, and we're going to really dissect these psukim. It says v'im hachal yachal mebaser zevach shlomav yom shlishi, which seems like you ate it at the wrong time. Lo yiratzeh. Okay, so when it says yom shlishi zehu chutz l'zmanai, right? It's the wrong time. Pigel, and it says pigel zehu chutzim kaimai, the wrong place. So it sounds like it's pigel by either situation. And it says, however, menu. So it says if you ate from it, which is mashma echad b'lushnayim. So we say, therefore, zehu chutz l'zmanai. Only then do you get kares. Only if it's wrong, the wrong time, then you lose time. L'miute chutzim kaimo. No place, no kares. Maybe that's coming to tell you chutzim kaim you get kares. Lemutes chutzlas manai that you don't. So Gemara says no. Mistabra chutzlas manu adif. It makes more sense that if it's at the wrong time you get kares. Why? The pasach be because the pasuk opened with it because it started talking in the pasuk. It starts saying biyom shlishi, so it starts talking about zman. So therefore, it makes sense. No, adarabba. What do you mean? Pufakir, chutzim kaimo adif, the samachle. The word of pigul is actually written next to avoinatisa, ha'ichelas mimena. If you eat it, then you get kares. So biyom shlishi is not next to that. The word pigul, that is what's next to it. So maybe it should be chutzim kaimo that you get kares, not the other way around. So that's the question. Elo Amar Rabbi Kiyas Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Abdimi Amar Rav Samich Adatani Tana. He's samich on the following interpretation. It says as follows: Kishu Omer Shlishi beParshas Kedaishim Tihiu Shein Talmud Omer Shahari Kfar Nemar Im Hachi Yachal Mebaser Zevach Hashalom and B'Yom Shlishi. So we have another pasuk that discusses the dinim of pigul as we continue to Chav Chesed Beis. So im enu inu chutzim manai to an inu chutzim kaimai. So we already have a pasuk which tells us that it's not supposed to be eaten outside of its top time frame. So then why do you have this pasuk? Must be chutzim kaimo. So we have another interpretation, another verse which demonstrates that this Isser pigul, there's a din pigul on chutzim kaimai. Omiyat rachmana gabi noiser. And the pasuk excludes regarding noiser. V'oichlav avoinat yisa. It says if you eat it, then you will bear the sin. You get kares. Lemuti chutzlim koimo. So therefore, we come to say it's excluding chutzlim koimo, where you will not get kares. Ve'ema v'oichlav avoinat yisa zel chutzlim koimo. Maybe you do get kares for chutzlim koimo. Lemuti noiser mekares, and maybe you don't get kares for leaving the carbon over. No, what it must be that noiser, but leaving the carbon over, is where there's the din kares. Because we have a gzer shava of an oven by chutz l'zmanoi. So chutz l'zmanoi, the dumway lay bezeh zeh. They're basically comparable to one another, right? So what does that mean? So if we're going to Rashi. Daha ein psula bezman ve'ein nohig bebamas yachid she'ein shel mechitzos. So when it comes to chutz l'zmanoi, right? So chutz l'zmano sounds a lot like noiser. It has to do with the wrong time, right? As opposed to and also it's not nohig bebamas yachid she'ein shel mechitzos. That's chutzim kama. Okay, so adarab chutzim kaimo havilu mukmi bikaris l'migmer avanam l'chutz l'zmano the dame le b'mikdash. So what is that? Says Rashi. Mem is machshava, right? Because pigul is only chutz l'zmano, chutzim kaimo, not noiser. Kuf is ksas, even if you have an improper thought of some of it. Third is dam, right? We're talking about the achilas dam on the mizbeach. Shin is shlishi. Chutz l'zmano v'chutzim kaimo shneim sulin b'machshava. V'imchisha b'miksaso nisukuo. V'shneim nisalon b'avodas hadam. V'shneim nemer shlishi. Both of them say the word shlishi. Afuki tuma de'enu pasel machshava, which is basically all this, which is nicer. So how do we know that nicer is where there's kares? Maybe it's chutzim kaimo you get kares, just like chutzim zmano, so to chutzim kaimo. So Elam Rabbi Yochanan. So again, so maybe you can better compare chutzim zmano to chutzim kaimo and not nicer to chutz zmanoi, because because chutz zmanoi and nicer again is time related, and they're not noig b'bamas yachid. Okay, so. Shein shamachitzos. Okay, so again, chutzim kaimo doesn't apply to a bamas yachid because there's no place, because it can be done anywhere. But chutz l'zmanoi and nicer, there is a din pigul. Okay, din nicer. Okay, so again, apparently we should compare chutzim kaimoi to chutz l'zmanoi to say you're chayv kares even chutz l'zmanoi. So Ella Omer Rabbi Yochanan Tani. Tani Zevdi Bar Levi Asi Kodesh. Actually, there's a gzeres shava of Kodesh. Ksiv hacha es Kodesh Hashem Chilel v'nichrasa. So the pasuk says clearly that there's a din kares, and this pasuk it says yisa ki es kodesh Hashem chil v'nichrosa hanefesh ahim yameha. So you have that pasuk, and then it says v'sarafta as hanoiser be'esh, and then it tells you that v'im yivasim b'basar hamiluim mimena lechem. You have the extra v'sarafta as hanoiser be'esh. You have to burn it. Lo yo'achel. You're not allowed to eat it. Ki kodeshu. So someone who eats nicer is chayv kares. So we go. So maluhol nicer avkan nicer. So they're both psukim are talking about nicer. Obviously, the second one is talking about nicer. It says it explicitly. It says lo yichashev nefesh. It says lo yiratze v'im ochi yochel b'masa zevach shloma b'yom hashlishi zevach shloma b'yom hashlishi yiratzel hakev lo yichashev lo pigel yeh. Pardon me. It says explicitly in the pasuk that it's nicer. So too over here, where it says the word kodesh, we're also going to say it is. It says ki kodesh hu, and it says kodesh Hashem chilel. So therefore, it says kodesh by both places, and just like when there's nicer, still it's over there nicer, and there it says explicitly nichrosa, right? So there's kares by nicer, right? If you eat it, then you're going to be chayiv kares. So we see through that because there's shava of these two words that the pasuk must be talking about kares is what your chayiv kares. By nicer is what your chayiv kares for, right? B'ksiv hasam b'saraftas nicer b'eish v'gomer. Okay. So umalu hola nicer avkan nicer. So mute rachmana gabi nicer v'achlav avoyna yisa mute chutzim kaima mekares. So therefore, it's coming to say with chutzim kaimo that you don't get kares. So machaz is dikra. So how do you see this? Dikra richa b'chutz lizmanai. We actually have a very large pasuk which actually discusses a lot of different dinim, including chutz lizmano that there's a din kares. The shlishi, the parshas kedoshim to you, and the word shlishi in parshas kedoshim. Chutzim kaimo is coming to tell you chutzim kaimo. That pasuk is coming to tell you that, but there's no din kares. So epachana, maybe flip it. Maybe actually you should be chayv kares on chutzim kaima, but not chutz lizmano. So mistabra richa b'chutz lizmano. It makes more sense that the lengthier pasuk is talking about chutz lizmano, which talks about kares. The gamer oven menaiser. The damile b'zav. We already said that it's comparable in two ways regarding zman as well as the bama. So adarabba richa b'chutzim kaima b'shlishi the kadashim to you b'chutz lizmano mishum the damile. The damile, so smachev v'kam a mayitle. Okay. El amarav kulu mikra richa asin. Actually, everything can be learned out from this one place. The ksiv ha'oichel that you can eat it. So when it's talking about b'shtei achilos hakas v'daber achas achilos adav achas achilos mizbech. As we said, that the only time there's a chiyuv of pigel is if you have during shchita the wrong machshava about eating it, either in the wrong time or place, or that you do the blood applications like the zrika, which is achilas mizbeach in the wrong place. That's what it's coming to tell you. Mibaser zevach shlomov. What does that mean? So ma shlomim, just like in karma shlomim, mifalgin umispalgin. So you have the situation of pigul, and it's dealing with basar and dam because some of the meat could be eaten. Avkol mefalgin mispalgin, which is coming to exclude a carbon oila. So when it comes to that, let's see if Rashi says this. Avkoil yotze minchas. So it says like this: Avkol sheish boy mefalgin mispalgin pigul noig boy yotze minchas kohanim v'minchas kohen Mashiach v'minchas nesachim shehin matirin as atzman. Vein behem shirayim. There's no shirayim to be eaten. Lis pagil machmas avoidasam. Okay, so that's what that's coming to exclude rather. Shlishi zechutz lizmanoi. When it says shlishi, it's a time, so it's saying outside of the pigul is outside of that time. Lo yiratze is kiratzas kosher. It has to be that, says Rashi, mashma azrika, lote zrika zumaratza. Shmamina di'ad sheyizur kadam, machshavas pigul toli v'aimedas. It has to be that it's totally specifically on this machshava about doing the zrika at the wrong time. But however, let's say shenishmach batal hapigul. Let's say the blood spilled at that point, then that's it. It's going to be hiratzek siv gabi basar. So gabi kosher. So it has to be that it's only pigul if you actually did the actual zrika, even if you did it the right time. But as long as you did the zrika, then it kicks in. However, until then, there's no din pigul. So if, let's say, if it spilled, so you never did zrika, right? So if you never actually did the zrika, so then it's not going to count. It won't be pigul. So that's what it's saying over here. That shlishi, okay, lo yiratza is b'aratzas kosher. It has to be you did the zrika, right? But if you didn't do the zrika, then it won't count. V'chein haratzas psul. Uma haratzas kosher ad shikruvu kol matirin, right? Well, you did sprinkle the blood, right? You did the zrika, was done, okay? Av haratzas psul ad shikruvu kol matirin. If you didn't do the zrika sadam, then it's not going to be pigul. Again, if it's spilled. Hamakri b'hakrava hu nissel. It's only the hakrava in a nissel b'shlishi. So in other words, the whole problem is that you had a machshava pigul during the time of shchita. But let's say you didn't have an improper thought, but it just turns out that you did everything properly. It's a perfect carbon, but you just ate it at the wrong time. That's not considered to be pigul. There could be an iser nicer, but that's not considered to be pigul. The kohen doesn't become disqualified. The carbon becomes disqualified. Lo yichashev. Here's a very important drasha. Chav Testament Aleph. Lo ya'ariv by machshavos acheros. It can't be that you had any other improper thoughts. So the only time it's pigul is if everything else was fine except for it. Lo yichashev. You didn't have any other machshava. But if you had another machshava which possible there or something else was done, so then it's no din pigul. Pigul zeh chutzim kaimo. And as we said before, the word pigul itself is chutzim kaimo. Yeah, but lamin shemitztarfen zemzeh. It comes to tell you that they combine to the shear of a kazayas. Says Rashi, is considered a havoya achas. So therefore mitztar. Says Rashi, chatzi shirehin l'msulas a carbon. Therefore it can still pass the carbon half and half to be mitztarf. V'hanefesh ha'yichelos mimenu. If you eat from it, there's a chiv kares, but it's only echad v'shnayim. Ve'ezuzeh, that's chutz l'zmanoi. Only then will you be chayv kares, but not chutzim kaimo. The gomer oven manaiser the damilei bezab. As we said before, because it has similarities to nicer, and that they're both zman related, and also they are regarding a bamas yachid, as opposed to chutzim kaimo. There's no din chutzim kaimo by bamas yachid. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's look at a few more questions. Question 13. What exactly are the two ways? First of all, zman. They're both will be possible by zman. Either, obviously, if you're machshava by shchitas, you're going to do this zrika at the wrong time, or that you ended up eating, the carbon was left over nicer after a certain amount of time. And also a bama, that they're both noig by a bama, but chutzlim kaimo is obviously not, because there's no mechitzos. Question 14. Madua kafal kasav lashon achila b'kra de pigul im ha'achal ya'achel. You could have asked any of these questions, but what is achilos? Adam echad achilos mizbech teaches you shalosh shinechish lechel l'machar lahaktu emurim l'machar pigul. It doesn't matter if we're talking about you eating it or the hakarava, or you actually putting it on mizbech. Either way, it's considered to be pigul. Okay, let's maybe see another question. Ta 8 we saw before, which is not going to see that one again. TA 9. So there's 3 answers, but at least we see one of them today. That it has to be that your machshava is dafka on improper only on the pigul on dafka that, but there's no other psul. Let's see what it says over here. Oh, b'machshava hu nifsal ve'eno nifsal b'shlishi. Right. There may be more than that. Let's look over here. So it says it's only that you have a machshava you only have these machshavos. Is that what it said? But did it say that? Maybe we're gonna have. Oh, it's gonna be. We didn't finish this, but one we're gonna see later on that it has to. It's only these, but it's not coming to tell you that if there's some other, there is a third pigul. It's only this. I'm not sure why it says that. Okay, I guess that'll be tomorrow's daf. Question TB8 we did, and Bama Nechlu Tanakama because Zayis Machar, Zayis B'chutz Adkan.